how is it possible concerning that Moshe Rabbeinu, who knew all the miracles that would take place, so he would go ahead and say that we would go that um, the Meraglim should he should send the Meraglim. Why would he send the Meraglim? Why would he send the spies when there was no need for it from a physical perspective? If you don't need to know if it's going to be fortified cities or strong or weak, if you know that the Abishter is going to miraculously take you in, etc., etc. So he started explaining that really there are three different levels. We have in Torah three different levels, and I mean, we spoke about the idea of fulfilling the mitzvahs and gashmias that the spies were fearful of going into and dealing with physical fulfillment of mitzvahs. That's the part that we didn't learn inside the mimer. Then we spoke as well about that dafka through fulfilling mitzvahs in the physical does one reach the highest most level. But to be able to reach that highest most level, a person needs to have an asirus elah from above, an assistance from above. And then only then through our avoided down here below can we reach a much higher level, further and greater than if we would not have the physical mitzvahs, which would be to have the assistance from above. To be able to understand this type of association between the mitzvahs from above and what we do down here below, etc., we need to first explain the differences in Torah, for example. We said that in Torah, there is three levels of Torah. Torah is called an inheritance. Torah is called something that we toil in. And then Torah is also called a matana, a gift, like matan Torah. And there's these three levels of Torah correspond to the three ideas that we find in Torah. The one idea that we find in Torah is prior to the study of the Torah, that all of us are able to have the idea of Torah. Torah is available to every single Yid. That's the Yerusha, that's the inheritance. Then there's the idea that the Chazal say that the Torah is something that we need to toil for to actually make it my own. And then there's another level, the level that is when we reach a level that is beyond what we can reach through toiling in Torah. So there's a level higher than that. The level higher than that, that is given as a gift. And like it says, that a person only gives a gift to someone that did something pleasing for them. In other words, a gift must be predicated on something that happened earlier, some type of relationship that occurred earlier. So the same thing over here, the gift that the Eibishter gives us, Torah, is after we have had the level of toiling in Torah. So now the Rebbe is going to explain concerning the idea of this, the difference in the gift of Torah and the toiling of Torah, based on a Maimer Chazal about when Hashem studies Torah. The Rebbe is going to try to fit it in two different Mamorei Chazal. One thing is that it's brought down the Maimer Chazal that the first 3 hours of the day, the Eibishter studies Torah. Then there's a different Maimer Chazal. The other Maimer Chazal says that whenever a person studies Tanakh, the Eibishter is sitting across from him studying Tanakh. Whenever a person studies Mishnayos, Gemara, or the Eibishter sits across from him and studies Mishnayos and Gemara as well. So how do we reconcile the two? Does the Eibishter only study Torah the 3 first hours of the day, or is the Eibishter always studying Torah with us? So we are holding, like I said, about 2/3 down, page 77. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 lines from the bottom, the end of the line, where it says, Ubezeh Yuvan. Ubezeh Yuvan Madi Isa, this will be understood what is brought down. whoever reads Mikra, in other words, the Psukim of Tanakh, or whoever studies Mishnah, Torah Shebal Peh, so he's doing Mikra, he's doing Mishnah, Torah, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I'm sorry, I call the Shkola Koyda V'Shoyna B'Torah HaKadosh Baruch Hu Koyda V'Shoyna Kenegda. That Hashem is sitting like across from him, like a partner in study, and he's also the Eibushter is also reading the Chumash. The Eibushter is also studying the Mishnah. Movement is there from this is understood. Calls mat that in all time, in Kol HaKoyda V'Shoyna B'Torah HaKadosh Baruch Hu Koyda V'Shoyna Kenegdoi. So then, whenever it doesn't make a difference, 3 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, 7 o'clock in the evening. Whenever the person is studying Torah, the Eibushter is sitting across from him and studying. Therefore, how do we reconcile it with a different Maimer Chazal? If he's moving according to this, it's not understood. By the Isa, what's brought down the Gemara, the Yud Beis Shoy, that the day is made up of 12 hours. That's Chazal say the daytime has in the 12 hours. Gimel Shoy's Rishonis, and the first 3 hours of this 12-hour period of daytime is so HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yoshev B'Torah, the Eibushter is sitting and is involved in Torah. What is the advantage in these 3 specific hours? Why these 3 specific hours when Hashem learns Torah, whenever we're learning Torah? So the Rebbe explains, the idea behind this is the fact that in any time, regardless what time of the day it is, when a person sits and learns Torah, the Eibushter is learning opposite him. The Torah Shabbai. That is the level of Torah that we reach through our toil and effort. This is the first 3 hours of the day. The Eibushter is sitting and studying Torah, specifically those 3 hours. That's the level of Torah, the gift level of Torah that we mentioned yesterday is higher than the toil level of Torah. That's given Malmaila, that's given from above. And therefore, right? That's also the idea of the 3 first hours. What's the significance of the 3 first hours? Since there's no time by the Eibushter, so what are these hours? So he says, Gimel Rishonos to Atik. These are the 3 first ones of Atik. This is the way the Torah is specifically a gift from above. That is the idea of the first 3 hours. In other words, the spheres are in general divided, the 3 first ones, which is the level of Chachma Bina Das, and then it's called Zayin Tachtonis. There's the 7 latter ones, which is the level of the Midas. The 3 first ones always is the most highest level, always connects to the level prior to that. So the first 3 hours signifies the Chabad of Atik, the most removed and highest level, which also Chabad has to do with Torah. So the level of the gift of Torah, that comes from Chabad of Atik. That's the way Torah is specifically a gift from above. Meaning, because the level of Atik, and especially the 3 first ones of Atik, that is something that is completely above and beyond everything. So that is the level of Matana. That's not a level that we reach through our toil. That's given to us. That utmost highest level is the level of Torah that's given to us once we have toiled in Torah. So again, there's 3 levels in Torah. There's the level of Yerusha. In other words, Hashem's empowering us to do it before we study Torah. Then there's the level of Yegiyah b'Torah, what we attain through our own work, through our own toil. Then there's the 3rd level that once we have toiled and reached as deep and as high as we can in the levels of Torah prior to previously, so then we reach a level of Matana, the highest level. Now, once we know about these 3 levels in Torah, so from that the Rebbe expands, this applies by mitzvahs also. Hey, 5 lines in the bottom of the page. Since in Torah there's these 3 matters, so therefore automatically there's all these 3 things also in the fulfillment of mitzvahs. Where do we see it? So he says we find the beginning of this idea in the bracha that we make before mitzvahs. There's different types of brachas. And we start off with, before doing a mitzvah, we have to make a bracha on it as well. So he says the nuscha bracha kaidem asiyas mitzvahs, the language and the expression of the brachas before performing a mitzvah. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam. You are blessed, Hashem, our God, the King of the worlds. The Tevis Hashem Elokeinu. The words Hashem is that's our God. It's like my father-in-law wrote in the name of the Alter Rebbe, the Elikim hu lashon koyach. Elikim is from the expression power and might, strength. Avaya Elokeinu. What does it mean when we combine Avaya with the word Elikim? And not only that, but we add Elokeinu. Is the classic thing is the Avaya Becheinu B'chayaseinu. That Havaya Yud-Kei Vav-Kei is our power, our might, our life force, our vitality. What does this come to tell us? This comes to tell us that before performing a mitzvah, we are empowered by Hashem to be able to perform the mitzvah. So, as soon as Koyach Hakim mitzvahs, this the empowerment for fulfillment of mitzvahs. So Hashem being our power and our strength, by saying that in the bracha, we are emphasizing and bringing out how we have this extra power of Hashem. After we say that Avaya Elokeinu, afterwards we say Asher Kiddushaנו b'mitzvosov, that He sanctified us, He made us holy with His mitzvahs. As I named them Gashmi, that He takes the physical thing, He refines it, and He elevates it, and He makes it holy. That's Asher Kiddushaנו b'mitzvosov. This is all the expression and the language of the bracha of fulfillment of mitzvahs. This is prior to the performance of the mitzvahs. We say this entire bracha before we're doing the mitzvahs, because this is the empowerment, the recitation of the bracha is the drawing down of the empowerment and the making of the empowerment of the mitzvahs. Before we can actually do the mitzvahs, we have that empowerment. Then the next step is the second level of the agufa mitzvah atzma, but through the actual performance of the mitzvahs. Once we have recited the bracha, through the inspiration down here below, through our doing the mitzvah down here below, so then we bring down the inspiration from above. Then we reach even higher, more than just the second level, but we reach even a deeper level than just Esrus Leila. But really, there's a third level, a level akin to the level of Matana in Torah. That's the level that we know that the reward of the mitzvah is the mitzvah itself. That, in other words, the very mitzvah itself is a great and awesome revelation from above. The highest level in mitzvahs itself, who on mitzvah atzma, is the mitzvah itself. What occurs when a person performs the mitzvah itself? The connection and the joining with the one that commanded. A mitzvah in balarotzen, or hamitzuva in balarotzen, the one's being commanded is joined with the one who possesses the will. So not only when we perform the mitzvah do we transform the physical, not only when we perform the mitzvah do we have Hashem's will, but we get even higher. We join with the commander of the mitzvah. That's like the level of matana, the utmost level, the beyond all of that. So what does this have to do with Moshe Rabbeinu sending the spies? Let's go on to the second paragraph on page 78. This will be understood, the advantage of entering Eretz Yisrael through the fulfillment of the mitzvahs. In physicality, through that, one reaches very high. So he's continuing the theme that we mentioned before, that the reason why we had to go into Eretz Yisrael was to be able to fulfill mitzvahs in the physical, and through that we would attain the highest, most level. Be able to be the avoid in the physical. Not needs to be at the center from his level. The person should be able to be clothed in the physical. For this, we need to be empowered from above, like we said before. That's the idea of the sending of the spies before entering Eretz Yisrael. That's the empowerment. Just like before doing a mitzvah, we need to be empowered from above by reciting the bracha on the mitzvah. Just like before learning Torah, we have the empowerment from above because Torah tzivolanu marashak tilos Yaakov. So then the Yerusha, the fact that Torah is a Yerusha to us, that empowers us and that enables us to do it. So too, when we're dealing with the level of being able to enter the physical world and engage with the physical world and be able to deal with elevation of the physical world, Moshe Rabbeinu sent the spies. By Moshe Rabbeinu sending the spies, that caused and that brought about the empowerment that we should be able to engage with the physical world. Let's see, 5 lines from the top of the paragraph. This is what it says, send for you men, and they will spy out the land of Canaan. Now, there's different words that can be used for spying. One is the level of Yitzarin, the level of the Yesuru. I'm sorry, they use the word Rigul, spying out. What's the idea of Yesuru? So Yesuru means to look and to spy out, like we said at the beginning. But Yesuru could also mean Lashon Yisrain, is also from the word extra, an advantage, something additional. That the access and the advantage of the land is in everything. That there is a special extra level in Eretz Yisrael and in filling the mitzvahs, the Gashmias. It says the Shiluach Hamaraglim. The idea of sending the Maraglim was the empowerment so that they should be able to be the physical avodah. So here we answer the question about what was Moshe Rabbeinu's purpose in sending the Meraglim. And we're going to elaborate upon this a little bit more, but essentially the sending of the Meraglim was to be able to cause and to be able to bring about the empowerment that the Yidden should be able to deal with the Gashmis of the land. So the Rebbe is going to connect it with something else that Moshe Rabbeinu did. Before the Yidden went into Eretz Yisrael, so it says that Moshe Rabbeinu begged Hashem to enter as well, even though it was decreed that Moshe Rabbeinu would not enter Eretz Yisrael. So this is also what Moshe Rabbeinu requested. Let me cross and see. The L'chura in the movement, seemingly it's not understood. What was it that Moshe requested? Let me cross and see. The Kivin Sheba Ebra Goimer, since I will cross Harayisham, so he'll be there. What is the request that he asked? Specifically, I will see it. Moshe Rabbeinu's purpose was to enter Eretz Yisrael. Moshe Rabbeinu was disappointed that he would not enter Eretz Yisrael, so he should have said, let me cross and enter Eretz Yisrael. What's the idea of I will see? What's the idea of him seeing Eretz Yisrael? The point is being at Eretz Yisrael, spending time in Eretz Yisrael, doing the avodah in Eretz Yisrael. What is the vision? What does the seeing of Eretz Yisrael have any type of point to it? In even more so it's not understood. Shari Isa has brought down the famous question the Chazal asked, what was Moshe Rabbeinu's desire so strong to enter Eretz Yisrael. Period Nisava Moshe Lekans Eretz Yisrael for its fruits that Moshe desired to enter Eretz Yisrael. Does he need to eat its fruit? Rather, he wanted to enter Eretz Yisrael because there are many mitzvahs that can only be done in the physical land. Like we learned also in previous Maimorim that the majority of mitzvahs asay can only be done in Eretz Yisrael. So therefore, that's why he wanted to enter Eretz Yisrael. Therefore, if that's the case, he wanted to enter Eretz Yisrael to be able to fulfill the mitzvahs. So the language of his request should have been worded differently. Therefore, his request should have been that he wants to enter Eretz Yisrael and that the mitzvah should be fulfilled through it. And what's the idea? That Moshe Rabbeinu requested and davened 515 tefillos, it said, like the numerical equivalent, like the gematria, the word Veschanon. Veschanon is the gematria 515. So from that we derive that he davened 515 times that the Eibishter should let him go into Eretz Yisrael. But what was the language seemingly of the davening? It was all seemingly so he should see Eretz Yisrael. The davening should have been that he should not see Eretz Yisrael. The davening should have been that he should enter in Eretz Yisrael and fulfill the mitzvahs there. What was the emphasis on seeing? This emphasis on vision is going to connect with what we spoke about before, about Moshe Rabbeinu's purpose in sending the Meraglim was to empower the avoida with the physical. But the idea behind this is since in Eretz Yisrael was the avoida in the physical, like we said before, that for this we need to be empowered from above. Therefore, Moshe Rabbeinu wanted to fulfill through his seeing the land, specifically the idea of vision. Moshe Rabbeinu was the level of sight. Moshe Kos, like it says, that he saw the beginning, but the first he saw the whatever the Rashis means, but his level was Re'iyah, vision. The Gamba Midbar Amar Vanachnuma, also in the wilderness, he said, when they were arguing against him, they said, who we are what? Shoiva Bittel Atzmi, that he was a total state of Bittel. Therefore, he wanted to affect the idea of vision and sight. Vision and sight is a total level of Bittel. Like we're soon going to explain how there's a difference between when you see something and how that affects the person versus how when you hear about something. So he says, when in the end he did not see the land. And the Eibishter did not accept his request about crossing into Eretz Yisrael and seeing it. Amar, instead, Moshe Rabbeinu said, V'ata Yisrael Shma, and now Yidden hear, listen. That Moshe Rabbeinu told them, now we're only able to do the level of hearing. That seeing is not like hearing, and hearing is not like seeing. Moshe on the Royim, like we see in actuality, somebody hears a matter with all of its details, and he delights from the matter. When he afterwards sees the matter, he will have great delight and pleasure from this. Though he already heard the matter with all of its details, and the details that he heard, let's say a day ago, an hour ago, a year ago, fit in exactly the details that he sees now, fits in exactly the details that he heard then, fits in exactly to what he sees now. And then he enjoyed what he saw, what he heard, I'm sorry. Mikol Makum still in all he never Acer, he also said over year, like kind of God will be Acer by when he actually sees it, he will have much greater delight. Why is that so? Why does he enjoy seeing the matter then much more so and the renewed way than when he actually when he first initially heard about it. So he says the answer is the Tama Davaru. The reason for this is the Beria Yasham Shacham, the Pnimius, Hanefesh Yosef. In seeing there's a drawing down from the innermost level of the soul in a much greater way. And therefore, in a similar sense, just like in vision, there is a greater delight than when you just hear about it because there's more of the person's nefesh invested. Similar vein, that when one sees there's a greater bittul, a bittul more of the essence than hearing about it. And he's going to give a simple example. When he hears about a great king that lives somewhere across the ocean, and that great and awesome officers are completely sublimated to him. The Mishumza, who maybe is from this, he understands that very great people are bottled to him. So he also has to be bottled to that king. Even though the king is very far away and he's never witnessed them, still and all because of the great bittul that he feels. So when the king commands him to do something, he will do it. He will fulfill the command. But still on all top of page 79, it's totally not the same to the bittul that he has to the king. When he himself sees how many great and respected officials and ministers are bottled to the king, when he actually sees it with his own eyes. Then you will have a much more powerful bittul, a much greater bittul than what he had when he heard about the king. A contemporary mashal is the difference between hearing about the Rebbe, let's say, and then witnessing and seeing the Rebbe in person. So now the same. So this was the level of Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu was a very powerful state of bittul. And when he said, he said, let me cross and see. Ere could also mean from the word show. In other Amorim, it actually says that. The Ere could be read and translated as I will show. Initially, Moshe Rabbeinu wanted to affect the idea of seeing amongst Yidden. But afterwards, when he saw he couldn't affect by them the level of vision, he couldn't, by him not crossing, he wouldn't totally bring down the level of vision. So he said, Va'ata Yisrael Shema, and now Yisrael here. Now this level of vision that he wanted to affect in the Yidden would have been a greater bittul to enable them to engage in the physical world and not in any way be affected by the physical world and drawn down and lowered by the physical world. This was the same idea of sending the Meraglim. Sending the Meraglim was also about empowering the Yidden to be able to engage with the physical world and not be in such a way that it will be overwhelming and they won't be able to handle the physical, but they'll have the power to be able to handle the physical world. Okay, any questions? Sorry we went on so long without questions.
But if this is the same